for your information, there will be a Q&A session after the presentation. Please type in your questions for Dr. Williams. Now, it is with great pleasure to present Dr. Harry Williams. Dr. Williams serves as the president and CEO of Thurgood Marshall College Fund, the nation's largest organization exclusively representing Black college community. Thurgood Marshall College Fund's 47 member schools make up the publicly supported historically Black colleges and predominantly Black institutions, which represent nearly 300,000 students. Dr. Williams has served as president of Delaware State University and held senior positions at the University of North Carolina General Administration, at Appalachian State University and North Carolina A&T State University. Dr. Williams earned his bachelor's and master's degrees from Appalachian State University, a doctorate from East Tennessee State University, and is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Without further delay, Dr. Williams.
All right, thank you, Professor Ali. I appreciate this opportunity to be a part of the second annual Blockchain Summit that is sponsored by the Center for the Study of Blockchain and FinTech at Morgan State University, one of our premier HBCUs in the country. We are so excited about this opportunity to talk about the future of HBCUs, and I'm here to bring to the audience a very positive message about the future of HBCUs in this country. Our schools are needed more now than ever in the United States of America. We are the backbone of the middle class, of the African-American middle class. HBCU community helped create the middle class for African-Americans in this country. And so today we're going to spend some time talking about the reality as it relates to where we stand currently and as relates to where we're moving in the future. And I'm excited about the future. I know that these are some very, very difficult times that we're going through right now, but I can assure you that we will get through these times and that we will be stronger on the other side. Today, when Professor Ali asked me to talk to you about some of the issues that might be facing our schools, but also talk about some of the outstanding things that's taking place on some of our campuses as relates to the growth of our institutions and as relates to the competitiveness of our institutions. So today I want to take this time to do this. I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes or so, and then allow for the audience to ask questions. I found that these questions have been very, very helpful in helping to continue to share the good news as it relates to our HBCU community. As stated in the introduction, I am the third CEO of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, but I want to give you a little background on the Thurgood Marshall College Fund to kind of let you know how this organization was created and why it was created, and more importantly, why it is still needed in this country in terms of supporting HBCUs. In 1987, our founder, Dr. Joyce Payne, had a vision to create a fund that would support the 47 publicly supported historically Black colleges and universities in this country. As you all know, UNCF is the arm of the private HBCUs in this country, and they've been around for over 75 years. Matter of fact, they just finished celebrating their 75th anniversary, that's led by Dr. Michael Lomax, and they have been around for a long time, serving and providing scholarship opportunities for that community, private schools such as Morehouse and Spelman, et cetera. But we didn't have an organization set up to support the publicly supported HBCUs. 33 years ago, states were making decisions around appropriation as they are doing right now. And Dr. Payne saw that this, the direction that they were heading in was not a positive direction for public institutions in our country, and more specifically, not a positive sign for public HBCUs. So she wanted to create a fund that would provide scholarships to students attending our institutions so that they can graduate without having a lot of debt. So she also wanted to name it after someone that, that represent what HBCUs represents in this country, which is excellence and quality. So Dr. Payne, without any connection whatsoever, thought about approaching the late Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall and asked him if he would be willing to allow his name to be used to start this fund. She actually went to the Supreme Court and had a meeting with Justice Marshall and asked him very clearly if he would support this. And he said to her, why? Why should I support this organization? And she reminded him that he was a two-time graduate of an HBCU. He graduated top of his class at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and then he went on to earn his law degree at Howard University. So by sharing that information with him, he was moved by that and indicated that he would allow for his name to be used. Matter of fact, he signed the document giving Dr. Payne the rights and the privileges to use the name of Thurgood Marshall to raise funds on behalf of the public HBCUs in this country. And you fast forward 33 years later, by using his name, we've been able to raise more than $400 million to support our students and helping our students graduate without a lot of debt. And so therefore, the program was relevant, is relevant today. The reality, 72% of our students attending historically Black colleges and universities in this country are eligible for the Pell Grant. In order to be eligible to receive the Pell Grant, typically the family income is less than $20,000 a year. So right there, that's an obvious need there, because recognizing that these families cannot afford to send their child to get this education. But we also recognize that 43% of our students attending HBCUs have some sort of job to help pay and cover expenses at their institution. We don't want that to happen. We want our students to be engaged. We want our students to be active. We want them to be in the classroom, focused on the subject matter that they've decided to go into. And so to help alleviate that, we provide scholarships to our member schools and to our students. And we've been doing that, and it's been very, very successful in a very positive way. So in addition to scholarships, another component of another major aspect of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, we have programs, and we have programs that are designed specifically to create what we call door openers, opening doors for our students to be able to walk in some of the top Fortune 500 companies in the country. And by creating those door openers, we've been able to create opportunities such as internships for our students. We all know the data that's out there that support students who have an internship while they're in college, the probability of them transitioning and also graduating from college increases significantly, and also the probability of them securing a job after graduation increases significantly. So by creating these internship opportunities with these top companies, we've been able to allow students to gain entry, such as we have a major partnership with Apple. Apple is totally committed to supporting our students. We will have 35 students participating in a 6-week internship program this summer. I was talking to our partners at Apple yesterday, and they made it very clear, even though we are quarantined, so to speak, in our home, and that we are socially distancing from each other, the summer internship program will go on for our students. They will continue, and they will do it remotely from that standpoint, because they're committed to making sure that these students gain the necessary experience and necessary skill to help them be successful on this journey. So therefore, all of our internship partners have made that commitment. We have a program with Boeing, where we send some of our top students, engineering students, computer science students, to work at Boeing. And the goal there is for our students, when they graduate, for them to have a job offer to work at Boeing. And we have been very successful in helping students transition into those roles. So programs play a critical role of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And the third pillar of our foundation in terms of what we do on behalf of the HBCU community is advocacy, advocating on behalf of our schools at the federal level. We are based in Washington, D.C., and recognizing that our students rely heavily on federal financial aid to assist them throughout their college journey. Our goal and our focus here is to continue to work with our legislators, to work with the administration to secure funds so that students can maximize the amount of grants that they can receive without having to take out additional loans from that standpoint. So we've been very, very successful. So I'll give you an example of a current real-time matter. As you all know, our world was disrupted recently by the coronavirus epidemic, the pandemic that is taking place right now. And students had to leave at a minute's notice. My son is a sophomore at Howard University, and we got the call that we need to come and pick him up. And that was happening all across the country. And we also recognized that while that was happening, recognizing that some of these students didn't necessarily have the resources at their disposal to pack up, get a plane ticket to fly back home, or to drive back home, or to get back to their destination. And it's creating a stress right now on our system. So we have been working, and we worked with members of Congress just here recently. They passed a major stimulus bill. And when they passed this bill, we were very clear in our positioning to make sure that these dollars would also flow into the HBCU community. And we were successful in securing $1 billion to support minority serving institutions in this country in this first stimulus bill. In that $1 billion package, if you carve out just HBCUs, we will get $500 million. And what that will do, it will go back to the campuses, and it will help those campuses with their dollars and support, so that when students left in the middle of the year and they need to send refund checks to them for their housing or for their meal plan that they paid for, these dollars will be allowed for that, so the students can use to get those dollars, recognizing students need those dollars. So part of our government advocacy work is working on behalf of our students, and that's just one example of that happening. I'm working on an op-ed right now, which will talk about the impact of this pandemic that's taking place and how it's impacting our campuses. And what we have learned in talking to our presidents and talking to our students and talking to our senior leadership on the campuses and talking to faculty members around the country that represent our HBCUs is that there are some challenges that's taking place. One of our college, just for an example, I'll give you two examples. One college indicated, without naming the college in Georgia, that their college is not completely Wi-Fi, and they need hotspots for their students to be able to gain access to their internet. So in providing hotspots that allow those students that opportunity. One campus in Alabama stated to me that 10% 10% of their students went back to their community in rural Alabama, and they do not have internet connectivity. And so we are expecting our students to be able to adapt very quickly, and they will, and they can. But the reality, we need to understand what it's like on the ground for these students. Keep in mind, as I stated earlier, 73% of the students receive some sort of Pell Grant, which indicates that there's a financial challenge there. So with this new thrust of where we're in terms of this new landscape, we need to be prepared for that and recognizing that. And I know faculty members have been very, very committed to making sure that these students transition appropriately. A lot of our schools have allowed for this semester, which has been disrupted, to give the students an option to take a pass or fail, which is very, very important. And some of them will be able to keep their grades because when they left, they were making A's and they're continuing along this path, which is also very, very helpful for our students. But the reality of what's happening with our campuses is that this pressure on our system is creating some anxiety around. And we're going to get through this. Trust me, we're going to get through this. Some of our partners that we have reached out to have said that they want to support and they want to help. And I'll give you another real-time example. One of our major partners helped. We set up an emergency fund for those students. And I just want to give you some data to give you a clear indication of what's going on right now with HBCU students as relates to this pandemic. In this emergency fund, we had it live at TMCF for 30 hours, and we had to shut it down because the demand was so intense. Within 30 hours, we had close to 3,000 students to apply for 200 grants that we have at the organization. And what these students are asking for, I'll give you an example. Of the 3,000 students who applied, we had roughly about 1,000 of those students said that they needed to have these dollars to support them as it relates to housing, some sort of housing need that they are experiencing, and they need dollars to help pay for housing or to support them in housing. Another percentage of the students said, over close to 1,000 students said they needed because they needed a computer. They need the technology. They needed support with technology. And another 600 students out of the 3,000 said that they needed those dollars for food to help them live from that standpoint. And finally, the fourth bucket where these students are saying that they need support is around transportation to be able to get home, to get back to their destination. Our campuses have allowed some of the students to stay on campus during this time. And I know that's been a strain on the campuses, but that's the right thing to do for these students. So our institutions are in need, but our institution also play a critical role in society as relates providing these educational opportunities for these students so that they can persist towards graduation. And what I do know about HBCUs is that they are resilient, they are strong, and they will survive this. There have been commentary out there about whether or not HBCUs will survive this because of the cash flow issue associated with the students leaving and the anxiety around whether or not they're going to be able to come back starting in the fall to get back to some sort of normalcy. I'm confident that we will get back in the fall and that these campuses will thrive. I know that there have been some experts out there projecting that there's going to be some enrollment decline. I'm hoping that that will not come about, but I believe in my core that these schools will take advantage of this opportunity to make sure that they are doing everything in their power to be ready for these quick opportunities such as this burst into the technology world. I know some of our faculty members have been immersed in this, But there are some that just, quite frankly, this is a new space for them. So part of this adaptability for our campuses plays a critical role, and our campuses will do that, and they are doing that currently right now. So the future of HBCUs in this country is very, very strong, is very, very positive. It is needed because we serve a population of students that play a critical role in helping America to stay competitive. One of the things that I say when we're talking to presidents in terms of our schools being relevant as it relates to competing in society, I say very clearly, our institutions need to be competitive. They need to be adaptable, meaning that they adapt to the situation and be able to adjust on a minute's notice. And they need to continue to be relevant and be responsive to the needs of this country. And what I have found that is happening over and over and over again. And again, I know that we are going through some really, really difficult times right now. But I get back to looking at some just happened recently on TV, and I'm sure you all are fully aware of this, how this pandemic, the coronavirus, has impacted the African-American community at a rate disproportionately to the percentage of the population in several major cities, in Louisiana, in Chicago, in Detroit. In some cases, over 70% of the people that are passing away are from the African-American community. And what that tells me is that the disparity that exists in our community, and the only way to eradicate that is by using education and using HBCUs. And that's what we've been able to do. As I stated in my opening comments to the group, HBCUs help create the middle class in this country as we know it. And it still will continue to play a critical role in taking those students who come from these fragile communities, who come from communities where they may not have all of the necessary resources to be able to thrive in their high school situation. But we take those students, we bring those students in, and we tap into their skills, and we tap into their ability to do excellent work and to prepare them to be the next Thurgood Marshall. As you all know, Thurgood Marshall is from Baltimore, and we know that his legacy is strong. But the reality, Thurgood Marshall went to an HBCU, and it was there where he got his drive to create and dedicate his life to social justice and social responsibility and helping others. He's been able to, his name lives on throughout our world. And that's what we stand for at Thurgood Marshall. And I close with the comment, the vision that we have at TMCF for our students is changing the world one leader at a time. And at this moment, I will pause and open the floor up for questions and comments as relates to what I've just shared with you, or anything else you might have on your mind as relates to HBCUs. And I believe Professor Ali will direct the questions.
Dr. Williams, I'll ask my colleague, Dr. Sanjay Bhatna, who is on the call. He's going to be the moderator for the Q&A session. We have received questions, but we only respond or discuss the ones that have been submitted by known registrants, and we don't respond to the anonymous.
Dr. Williams, thank you very much, especially with respect to your vision for the future and the outlook, which is HBCUs are adaptable, relevant, and responsive. So we've got a couple of questions right now, some of which you've answered, but maybe there's more to more things to add to this, and this is from Kesia Smith. The question is, what are some suggestions for HBCUs to provide support, outreach during the current pandemic?
I tell you what we are finding from our college president is that the biggest type of support that we're providing is giving back to our students and community and allowing the students, because this has been hard on students. It's been very stressful as it relates to this happening during their generation, because nothing like this has ever happened. We've never seen anything like this. And so HBCUs have been that anchor in the community that will allow for students to know that we will return to some normalcy. And by continuing to be engaged with your faculty, more specifically with the faculty that are teaching online, and continuing to follow and keep your focus as it relates to your purpose of being in college, and using the energy that you have to continue to project excellence, even during this time when you're there working, and recognizing that HBCUs will push through this, and students will thrive, and they will actually even be better because of what we're going through right now.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. The next question is from Jada West. You mentioned there are studies that forecast a decrease in university enrollment within the next upcoming years. In your opinion, how can HBCUs stay relevant and combat this projected decline?
I tell you, that's a very good question. And what I'm basing that information on is what people are reacting to as in terms of what they think is going to happen to higher education in general. They think that there's going to be a decline in the traditional population of students after this pandemic winds down. I'm not there yet. I think that there's an opportunity for our schools to take advantage of a situation as relates to supporting their community and supporting the students who have expressed interest in attending their institutions. What I would encourage, and what I'm hearing from some of our presidents right now, is that they are still engaging those students who have submitted applications for the fall. We need to continue that. We need to continue that either by setting up some sort of phone bank communication in the admissions office on our campuses to keep the students engaged and excited about wanting to come to college. I know that the financial resources play a critical role in that. And what we need to do is to make sure that we're still exhausting all of our financial resources that we have on campus as it relates to recruiting these students and providing them with the scholarships that they need so that they can transition successfully in. If we keep that on the front burner, and then we focus on the students that we have that have left, and make sure we keep them informed on what's going on, and keeping them by communicating with them regularly so that they can come back and finish and graduate. As I stated earlier in my comments, the sole purpose of the fund is to help students be successful and to provide them with scholarships so that they can graduate. We need for you to graduate. We need for you to graduate on time. We know that sometimes you can get into a tight situation. We know that there are people who have lost their jobs. We know that there are people out there that are struggling. But I want you to not to give up. I want those students that might be thinking about dropping out and maybe thinking about working to help their families out. That is a noble thing to do. But the reality, we need for you to be back in school, and we need for those students to graduate so that they can not only move into a middle class, but move into a higher economic class. and a college degree will allow for that to happen. So that's why I think there's an opportunity for us to even press that even more so.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. We have one more question, and this relates to the summer session. And the question is, you talked about the summer session still being able to move forward. Since these are students, do you think the value of the experience would be diminished in any way? And this is from Annette George.
You know, I think more and more of our faculty members are teaching online on our campuses and creating an opportunity for students to not only take a course to get ahead, but also so that students can do an internship or take some type of employment opportunity so they can earn some money in the fall. So kind of balancing that is important for our students. I do not think that by being enrolled in an online program in the summer is going to diminish their educational journey. But I do know that the experience, there's nothing like the experience of being on campus. That's why I say the importance of that traditional student coming to campus and gaining the experience that they need in terms of their socializational skills and socializing and interacting and helping them with their emotional intelligence so that they can engage and work with others. That's always going to be a strong aspect of gaining that experience on a campus. So I think in the fall, I do believe that we will be open in the fall. I do believe that as long as people keep practicing social distancing, as long as those, as you've heard on the news about the curve, they talk about the bell curve and talk about flattening the curve and diminishing the number of people being exposed. And as long as we are moving down that path, I do believe that we will be able to get back on campus in the fall, and this will allow for the students to gain the richness of being in an HBCU environment. There's nothing like it. I can assure you of that. As stated in the opening, my youngest son is at Howard, and my oldest son graduated from Howard, and he said it was 4 years of the best years of his life. And so I believe that, and I know he had a really good experience, but I also knew when he graduated, he had a job waiting for him because of that HBCU experience that he gained there. And so that's why I want our students to come back. I don't want our students to think that they're gonna to not to go back to school because of whatever situation that may have occurred, but we want you to be back enrolled. We want you to be in that classroom, and we want to support you along that journey.
Thank you, Dr. William. That was changing the world one at a time, and the HBCU experience. That's fantastic, and to know that we may open up in fall for our students. Again, that's an excellent thing to hear. I have another question, and this is from, this pertains to the allocations of about $1 billion.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the question is from Bruce Berger, saying that there are 101 HBCUs and 700 MSIs. So that's a total of about more than 800 schools. And of that 1 billion, if we were to divide it evenly, that's a very, very small amount for each HBCU. So what can be done to increase that amount? Were there any lobbying efforts or anything that you may have encountered?
So that's a very good question, and I'm glad someone asked that question. We initially, when we heard that they were going to offer some type of financial relief, we recognized that we're not going to be able to make everybody whole, but just be able to create an opportunity to get a piece of this. Higher education in general received about $14 billion in the stimulus package. And out of that amount, we felt we did not want it to be looped into the 3,000 colleges and universities because that would dilute it even more so. So we advocated for a separate allocation of a funding. And we also advocated with the Department of Education a specific formula to support the institutions that have been designated either a minority serving institution or a historically Black institution, or PBI, predominantly Black institution. And so what we agreed to, and this is in the law, and this is easy to find this information if you go to the Department of Education, or also go to Congress, or type in CARE, the stimulus bill. It's a big document though, but there's a section in there as relates to the funding for HBCUs, minority serving institutions. And what we were able to do is that, and the numbers are right, there are about 101 HBCUs, and the number of MSIs, you're correct on that. But out of the $1 billion that was allocated, right at about 500 million of that will go to the 101 HBCUs. And it would based on the formula that they use, and based on their heads count, and based on the percentage of students who are on Pell, that's how they determine the allocation of those dollars. So some schools may get more than others based on their size. For an example, the largest HBCU in the country is North Carolina A&T, and they have over 12,000 students. So they will have more students in need in that category. And then we have, smaller HBCUs that they will look at. So I hear you, and I definitely understand why the question was posed. But this was this was something that we were very adamant about in trying to get these dollars. And another thing, these dollars will go into the Title III allocation, where the Title III is a federal designation for federal funds for schools like HBCUs. And the Title III dollars are very important for our faculty members in the STEM areas, working in that discipline. But also, we've asked the Department of Education to be a little bit more flexible with what those dollars could be used for. And we believe that they will roll out the rules and allow for the campus to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of how to use those dollars this time around. The great thing about this, your allocation that you've already received from the federal government for this fiscal year, and specifically Title III, will not be touched. So you will have those, but this will be in addition to help the campuses during this difficult time. One campus, for an example, mentioned that in refunds, they're going to have to spend over $8 million to send back. And they have already encumbered those dollars for other things on campus. So by allowing them to be able to tap into the federal dollars, it will help with their balance sheet in terms of their funding, so that, and when they come back in, so when our campuses come back in, we depend on the students to come in as it relates to revenue for our campuses. And so that revenue is tuition revenue, scholarship revenue, federal grant revenue coming in. That helps with our budget overall on a campus. So therefore, it's important that we get those dollars in. And that's why we want our campuses to be excited about starting back up in the fall and getting kids back in, because that's going to help with the revenue coming in, and it's going to support our faculty. It's going to support the infrastructure on our campus. And those are the things we need really badly.
Thank you. You mentioned the information about the stimulus bill. So there's one more question regarding more information, but this really is relevant to TMCF. And the question is from Justin Foreman. How can we get information for engineering and computer science majors at HBCUs on Boeing, Apple, and other scholarships?
So I appreciate that question. And what I would encourage all of our students who are listening, and if they are interested in pursuing and looking at programs on our that I referenced earlier, go to our website. That is tmcf.org. and look up programs. And in the heading there, you will see the different programs and the timing of those programs. Like we've already, we do this in a year in advance. So we have what we call talent acquisition leaders. They go around to the campuses, and specifically you can go into your career service office on your campus. They'll have a TMCF designee. All of our schools will have a designee on campus for TMCF scholars. And then they will let you know when a TMCF representative will be there. Typically, when we recruit for the Boeing students, we do that in the beginning of the year. So when you go back, I know we're at the end of the year now, but when you go back to school, be on the lookout for representatives, and also checking our website, because we post on our website when students should apply for the Apple internship experience, when students should apply for the Boeing experience. We also have a graduate program that is with Hennessy to help with students who might be pursuing an MBA. As a matter of fact, supply chain management is a big area, and there's a big need out there for supply chain managers out there. So Apple, they need supply chain individuals. And matter of fact, this past year we were low on the number of supply chain individuals who applied to be considered. So those are things that you will get from the recruiter when they come to your campus. I know that students, you have a lot going on campus, and I know your inbox get a lot of stuff, but those who are very aggressive as it relates to their academic experience will take the time to go and search and research this, and those are the students that will benefit. I give you one example about the Apple program, which is pretty impressive. In addition to a full 6-week internship that is fully paid in terms of your resources there, you will be in Cupertino in California. In addition to that, we provide you with a stipend up to $25,000 for students to return their senior year. So they help you with your education journey. So in addition to the scholarship, you'll also get a stipend. Same thing with the Boeing program, same thing with the Hennessy program, because we recognize, and we know that because the data speaks for itself, the data is very clear that our students need some additional financial assistance. And what the goal here for us, when you go and experience these incredible experiences with these amazing companies, that you are ready for those opportunities. And we want to do everything in our power. We know that our faculty members are prepping you and getting you ready for these incredible opportunities in terms of how you present yourself, how do you interact with someone in a senior leadership role, and being prepared. We call it getting you corporate ready. And being corporate ready, it requires a sense of discipline and listening to your faculty members and hearing them tell you about how you should conduct yourself in an environment like this. And you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for these incredible opportunities coming along your way, because those companies that I referenced, they go out and select the best. And so when they come to us and when we send them names, we have already validated the student, because they've already demonstrated that they're, one, good academic students, and two, that they have this relevant skill set to be competitive. But what some of the employers, so that students who are listening on this webinar to pay attention to, one of the things that we've received, in addition to allowing students to go there and experience these experiences, we get feedback. We get feedback from them because we want to know why they didn't select certain number of students because they went through the interview. You may have had a grade point average. Most grade point averages around a 3.0. In some cases, some students with 4.0s, they didn't get selected. And we couldn't understand why they weren't being selected. And the feedback we got was that even though the students had outstanding grades, but one of the things that was a challenge was what they call soft skills. And those soft skills meaning, how do you interact with a person when you go in to interview? How do you conduct yourself? How do you project confidence? How do you demonstrate to them that you want this job? How do you allow for yourself to come out in a way that they see, and they see that confidence coming from you? And sometimes that requires work. That also requires coaching and getting students ready for, you have to be prepared, not only in how you present yourself, but how you articulate what you would like to achieve, and knowing what you want to achieve is very important too. So that was one of the feedback we have received in terms of how our faculty members can help these students continue to get ready for this, in terms of developing them in the classroom, with their writing skills, with their speaking skills. These are things I know you hear time and time again. I know faculty members talk about this all the time. I know faculty members are constantly telling students, you need to write, you need to spend time writing, you need to spend time with your assignments, and taking it very seriously, because it matters. And I can assure you those things really do matter for students when they're trying to get that incredible opportunity at one of these major companies.
Thank you. I will take there's a question from Michael Legons, who happens to be the Morgan Blockchain Student Club President. He's also an MBA student at Morgan. His question is, as it relates to blockchain technology, does TMCF have a strategic aim to support HBCUs in closing the gap?
Well, you know, we are interested in all areas of study and innovation and creativity, and blockchain is just one of them, which is definitely innovative, definitely creative, and it's something that is needed. We typically do these. We have these pitch competitions around the country where companies will want to get to know the student and want to get to know their level of interest. And as a matter of fact, Morgan State just recently won a major pitch competition that we had with the NBA, which a group of students from Morgan State did an innovative, creative program in terms of how they were going to expand the NBA outside of the United States in an international market, in a global world. And they used their skills that they had learned from their business program there at Morgan State. So there are a wide variety of opportunities for students to be able to take advantage of their unique discipline and unique skill set, because that gives you what we call a competitive advantage, which is very, very important.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I will just take two more questions, even though there are quite a few other questions that will remain unanswered. This is a question from Kesia Smith. Are there any opportunities to support small businesses in the communities where HBC?
I lost you. So again, you got.
Are there any opportunities to support small businesses in the communities where HBCUs are located?
I think there are many opportunities there, mainly because HBCUs are in a lot of our communities. In some communities, they're the major economic engine within that community. And it is the small businesses that could be very helpful in helping in a wide variety of deliverables that they may need. So I think the thinking is very creative and very innovative. And if you live in a community and you provide some service that is geared towards supporting an initiative. I know here at TMCF, we spend a great deal of our energy and focus on helping minority businesses, and more specifically helping them when we do major scale events, because we know it's important. We know that the talent is within our community, and sometimes it just need that little extra push to get there. And so by being focused and being committed to the mission that you've outlined in your particular business, I think there are many opportunities there for a quality business to be supportive within our HBCU environment.
Thank you. I'll take the last question, and this is from Jada West. It is known that HBCU endowments are significantly lower than other institutions. What advice would you give to alumni to promote giving back to their alma mater? You know, what can current students do to encourage their peers to give back upon graduation?
Well, I love that question because it goes direct to the heart of our institution and sustainability. And the person who asked that question is actually correct as relates to endowments on our campuses. That's why this pandemic is playing a very, very devastating role in potentially harming some of our institutions, because the resources are not there. There's no extra cash that you can bank on, like some major research institutions that may have, you know, several $billion in their endowment and they can just live off the interest there. We don't have that luxury in our community. One of the things that we have to do a better job on, and I'm speaking firsthand as a college president of a very prominent HBCU in the state of Delaware, and it was one of our focuses to get our alumni engaged and to allow our alumni to give back and allow alumni to recognize that it was that institution that helped them secure the financial resources that they currently have because they needed a degree. And also to allow our students not to focus or hold grudges on some of the things that may not have worked out well while they were on campus and they said, well, I'm not going to give back. You got to be bigger than that. You got to be bigger than that. You got to understand that these institutions are the pillars of our community. You got to understand that these institutions will be there to provide support for first generation low income students and give them the confidence that they need to be successful in this world. And every time, and you have a responsibility, I really do believe this, you have a responsibility to make sure that you are protecting that institution that you graduated from, not only protecting it from in terms of resources, but also in terms of people that may have things to say about your institution that may not be nice. And you have to stand up for your institution and recognizing that that institution and most of our HBCUs in this country have been in existence for over 100 years. And it was created for you. And you got to understand that, you know, when these institutions were created, the whole history and the whole philosophy behind it was creating an institution that would serve African Americans because they didn't have the luxury of going to the predominantly white institutions. So these institutions were created for you, and there's a responsibility to make sure that we help preserve them for the next generation to come our way. So it's been a treat to be a part of this webinar today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Professor Ali.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Williams. It was extremely informative, and we need your leadership, especially in these difficult times, to continue, give us hope, and inspire us to move forward. I know that there are many other questions that people are asking, and I encourage everyone to contact you at Thurgood Marshall College Fund website. Send the questions that they have, because unfortunately we have a limited amount of time during this webinar. And with that, I wanted to thank all of my colleagues who made it possible to put this webinar together, and also for the gracious acceptance of this invitation, that you honored us to share your wisdom with the rest of the attendees. We thank all of you.